If you knew me before, you wouldn't even look my way. If I had the nerve to speak, you wouldn't hear what I say. Time has come and gone so fast, we're not who we used to be.
And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Carol. Carol, thank you so much for being here with me today.
No, you're most welcome.
So first of all, I step into this place and I sort of geek out, right? Because like how many places like this exist? And places like this should be thriving in our community because like when I grew up, the source of knowledge was books. And how did you come about to owning a bookstore?
Well, I've always had a passion for books. My house looks like a library. And when I've lived in Silverton for almost 34 years, and I have watched bookstores kind of come and go. When Chuck opened this one, it'll be 15 years in September. I came in and I introduced myself, and he was a lovely man. Old curmudgeon, he liked to pretend to be, but he was a lovely man. And I've always fallen in love with bookstores. Every place I go, even now that I own a bookstore, it's still, if I go someplace, first thing I do is I Google where all the independent bookstores are, and I go and I buy their books, or I just love looking around. It's just a fun environment. So when I came in here, after I got to know Chuck a little bit, I asked him, I said, do you need a volunteer? And I was working a full-time job at the time. And I just said, would you like a volunteer? And, maybe I can give you a day off or, so he took me up on it. And that was like almost 15 years ago. So I volunteered, and then I would take my vacation at the same time they wanted to take their vacation, and I would come here and work while they went on vacation. And so one thing led to another, and they moved around a lot. And Chuck got really kind of antsy. He wanted to go somewhere else. Not that he didn't like Silverton. They just liked to move around. And so when their son got ready to graduate from high school, he was talking about, it's time because he's out of high school, moving on. And so he talked to me about selling the store, and he wanted to give me first offer or first, refusal, whatever you call that. And it was like all the stars aligned and fate took over, and I just kind of jumped in without a net and went, why not? It's my favorite environment to be in.
And I love that because the stories like that are the best ones, because sometimes you just have to open your heart up to whatever fate brings you, because you never know what opportunities are going to come your way. So what prompted you to come to Silverton of all places, right? Because I love this community, but it takes a decision to move here because it's kind of off the beaten path. So what prompted you to move to Silverton?
So I lived in Grants Pass. I was a single mom, 5 kids, non-traditional going back to school student. So when I graduated from Rogue Community College, my initial plan was I wanted to go to law school. And so I applied to Willamette to go and to get my bachelor's so that then I could go to Willamette Law School. And I was accepted. I was very excited. But that had to make the choice of I can't stay in Grants Pass and go to Willamette. So packed all my kids up and we moved here, and it wasn't a plan, I didn't know about Silverton. It was just, I'm in Salem. I have to look around for a place for us to live. And so a friend of mine actually put me up in an apartment that Willamette owned until we could find some place to live. And I drove around and found Silverton and met the wonderful landlords that I ended up renting a house from for almost 10 years until I was able to buy my own house here. And so that was just, again, it was like all the stars aligned and fate took over and I met these wonderful people. I got a house. And then eventually just able to buy my own. So I'm here.
And then in terms of like the bookstore here, right?
Mhm.
So when you came and you started volunteering, I'm going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was a passion for reading and a passion for books that brought you here. Was that something you always had? Was
I,
a passion for books, or was that something you sort of stumbled across later in life?
oh no, I've always had books. I have tortured my children for years because any place we go, oh, mom's going in the bookstore. Okay, we'll be there for how long are we going to wander around in the bookstore, Mom? So it's always been something that I've done. Even when I would go visit my dad, my dad loved to read, but he always knew, I'm coming, so let's tour bookstores. And so it's just been something I've done my whole life is collect books.
And what is it about a book that you love so much?
Um, I I love the fact that no matter what kind of day you're having, if you pick up a book and you start to read, it takes you somewhere else. It allows your mind to let go of whatever stress you have in the world that day, and you just read either beautiful stories that someone has, put all of these wonderful words to, or you read something that scares the bejeebies out of you, but it still takes you somewhere else. So books are just, um, I can't envision a world without books.
And it's one of those things too, where like if you find that one book, because everybody remembers that one book that sort of changed their life and changed their perspective. And for me, oddly enough, it was a book called Ender's Game. And I remember reading it as a fluke as a child, but that was the first book I really got into. And then the ending was like, what? I did not see that coming. And so like I'm always like on the I always look for stories that have a literary twist in the end. And it's something that you have way more creative license in a book than in a movie these days, because you can go places that the
Mhm.
author wants to go instead of where the industry says you have to go.
Right.
So like when you open up a book, like do you like know like within the first couple of pages if you're going to finish it, or are you the kind of person who's like, I've started it, I'm going to finish it no matter what?
I'm probably the kind of person that starts and finishes. Because I'm always thinking if it starts out really slow or if, kind of, you still go, okay, maybe it'll get better. And so I just keep reading till the end. And then I make a decision of, was it a good book or was it a mediocre book? Or is it one I'll tell my friends about, pass on to my kids?
And like that's fascinating because like the whole idea of like passing on books to your friends and your kids is kind of a foreign concept to me. So when I hear you say that, I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. So like, do you like have like friends and family that just know that every year you're going to get like 5 or 6 book recommendations from you along the way?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And it's really fun because my kids are readers. And so my daughters in particular, they're always passing on to me, Mom, you should read this book. You should read this book. And then I'll tell them, you should read this book. Or they'll or they'll borrow books from me. But it's funny, I've loaned out so many books over the years that even with my kids, much to their dismay, if they borrow books from me, I take a picture of them. So I know what books they've taken. So I can say, did you bring me back my, because I am an addicted collector.
And when it comes to the store, I like sort of how this store is sort of arranged in a way that's sort of inviting, like this little nook here in the back, but then also like the books that are strategically placed. Is there like a method to how you've organized the shop?
Well, I will have to give Chuck a lot of credit for how he originally organized the shop because it's really nice. It's like divided into general fiction and then you have romance. And so every category kind of has its space. But because I'm a small shop, I can't give, like horror books their own little space, so they're mixed in with general fiction. Or uh, I do I do my best to find a little nook and cranny for just about everything. Um, and there's the changes that I made to the store were kind of the configuration of it, how the um, shelves are arranged. So, as in I turned them all, which was a funny adventure in itself. But um,
Do you mind expanding on why that was a funny adventure?
because I had to close up the shop for what I thought was going to be just a couple of days. Well, because the shelves used to go this way, and so they were like this, and I wanted to rearrange them so they were like this, so that I could see the shop better. I could, see what if people needed anything better. And so my youngest daughter and we came here and we're starting to put what we what we didn't realize or didn't think about was if you're taking down what feels like a bajillion books, you have to put those
Oh,
bajillion books back
yeah.
in the order that they were in before. Because you take them down, you put them on the floor, but they don't necessarily stay where you put them. But the funniest part was we did not realize when we were moving the shelves that they were on a turntable kind of thing. And we thought that, if I pushed from one side and she pushed from the other, that we could, or pulled from the other, however we did that we could just move them. Well, my youngest daughter, she's tiny, but she's Shira. And when she pushed on her end and I'm pushing on my end, it made the shelf go whatever direction it went, I went flying because the shelf turned and it flew me across the room. But we couldn't stop laughing the whole time we're doing these shelves and trying to put everything back up. We just had a giggle fest the whole time.
Sometimes those are the best bonding moments between family
It was fun.
when you go on like adventures like that.
I'm not sure my daughter thought it was so much fun because she's going, this is a lot of work.
But I would imagine looking back, like there was a lot of laughs and a lot of bonding at that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me is when I first encountered you. And what I mean by that is I was coming down the street and a couple of your customers were coming out. And the conversation that you were having with your customers and the fact that they took a picture with you in front of the store, I was so deeply impressed. And one of the things that I try to stress upon people is you can't get that level of customer service in the large national chains. At the same time, you seem like the person who would go above and beyond for customers. Is that customer service sort of philosophy something that's sort of built into you as a human?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I've always had a drive to help people. Even when I was little, I was involved in a church group, and we went to the the hospital that housed the mentally disabled. And even as a child, I picked out the one child that kind of scared everybody. I still remember him. He was pretty amazing, but he was really definitely wasn't able to do a lot of communicating. Had a huge hump on his back, but that was the person I was most wanting to be involved with. And I think that just grew in me. Most of my adult life, I worked in the area of helping the unhoused, and I worked with people who had chronic mental illness, and it was exceedingly rewarding. I loved my work.
It's one of those things where, like, and I can't get into my day job, but I know what you mean, where, like, sometimes with your day job, it's that those moments in life that are equally challenging, yet very rewarding because you get to see the impact of your change. And a lot of the times we get stuck in society where we try to treat people with mental illness or who are houseless as others,
Mhm.
but they're just humans too.
Absolutely.
And, like, everybody deserves to be treated with, like, dignity and respect. And so I commend you for, like, taking on that career path, because that's one
Thank
of
you.
those things that is much needed and isn't as heralded or as put out there in the world as I think it should be.
Yeah, and I think one of the gifts that I got from it is my 2 youngest children. They would come to work with me on occasion, and when they were at the drop-in center, they would meet a lot of these people, and they were so, it's like they didn't treat them as others, like you said, but the thing that came out of it is that they totally, especially my youngest daughter, she totally became very vocal about um, if people were treating people badly, or they were being really detrimental, or saying things as they walked past somebody on the street. My daughter would speak up, and she would talk about these people, and she made me so proud when she would, and she still feels that way.
And I love that, because one of the things that I've stressed upon people too is that more often than not, when those instances happen, the victim doesn't have enough power to speak up for themselves.
Right.
And so when somebody like your daughter who has that privilege and power to speak up does speak up, that's how we can change things.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like, and I'm sorry, folks, I've said this a million times already, but not even identical twins have the same story in life. And so we're so quick to judge people without knowing the full story about what brought this human to this point in their life today. And if you
Absolutely.
experienced the exact same thing that human experienced, who's to say that you wouldn't be in the exact same spot? And so judgments, like, and I get this in a lot of my autism circles, right? Because the minute I disclose I'm autistic, 90% of the time people treat me differently. Good, bad, doesn't matter which direction, but
Right.
more often than not, people treat me differently just because I disclose. And so, like, I long for a world where that doesn't matter. And the reason I bring this up is because I want people to also know and hear it from you too. You don't care about anything other than welcoming people through your door. And it doesn't matter who comes through. You're going to welcome them with a smile and an open heart, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And why is that important to you?
You know, that's a hard question to answer, because it's just me. It's just who I've always been. I guess maybe I could thank my parents for that. I don't know where it came from, but it's just kind of who I've always been, as sappy as that sounds.
No, but I think it's an important story to tell, right? Because we fall in this trap of people believing that if you're a business owner, you have this one kind of mentality or this one kind. No, that's not the case. In fact, more people that I talk to who own small businesses are like you, kind, compassionate people, and those are the businesses we should be rewarding in our society, because, like, kindness goes a long way. And one of the things that sort of touched me at that moment that I came across your sort of interaction in the thing was that you took the time to come out of your store and do that piece. And like, oh, we forgot this. And oh, you did. Like there was added things that you didn't have to do that you did because you felt like it was the right thing to do. And the right thing to do, what I saw, was just the kind thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so like when you come into a place like this, like what is one of the most often asked questions from people?
Well, some people, it's like a little tour, how's the store laid out? Other people, they just come in and I always tell them, if you need anything, if I can be of help, let me know. And they'll say, great, we're just gonna peruse around. And I go, I'm like Shrek, I'm here all day.
I love that.
So just peruse all you like. And I guess one of the biggest questions I get asked is, how much are your books? Because when I first bought the store, we had signs on placards that took up shelf space that said what the prices were. Nobody ever looked at them. They always walked up and asked me how much they were. So in my infinite wisdom, I took all those signs down and put up more books because they're asking me anyway. So.
And I like that because like the more space for more books means there's more opportunity for more discoveries.
Yep.
Yeah. And so like when you're coming through and you're looking at like sort of like how the store is sort of laid out, do you have a preference in terms of your own reading, whether it's a hard book or a paperback? Do you prefer one or the other?
I love, as a book collector,
Yeah.
I love hardbacks because they last a long time.
Okay.
If you're not beating them up, throwing them across the room, they last a long time. I think that whoever had the idea of creating the trade paperbacks, that is fantastic because there's so many people that prefer paperbacks to hardbacks because they go, I can't hold a hardback in bed while I'm trying to read. So they like the paperbacks, but the trade paperbacks are better made than the mass markets. It's like if you open a mass market, you probably automatically break the spine of the book. So they weren't created very well, but the trade paperbacks are a really nice upgrade for people who love paperbacks. So if I can't get the hardbacks and I can get the trade paperbacks, I like those.
How can you tell the difference between the trade paperbacks and the other kind of paperback?
They're different sizes.
Okay.
The mass market are usually the smaller ones that you find that, will be thicker. The trade paperbacks are, a little bit tall. I can show you when, not right now, but
Yeah.
but there's a difference in like I said, the trade paperbacks were a really nice invention.
And then for those listening, like if they're looking at the shelf and things like that, is there like a way to tell just like off the bat?
That it's a trade?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a
And
very visual change.
and then in terms of like the style, right? Because like you have the traditional like nonfiction versus fiction, but then you have those sort of hybrid between the two, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you go, where am I going to put you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a challenge. And I'm sure that if you walked around this store and you would know a particular book you're looking for, that you could tell me, you put this in the wrong place. And I go, I've never had anybody tell me that, but I'm sure that it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've discovered even in my general fiction that sometimes I'll walk around, I'll be straightening it up or reshelving, and I'll look at a book and I'll pull it back down and I'll read the back of it and realize this isn't fiction. This is a true story. How did you get over here? And so I'll have to file it back in the nonfiction. But I'll wonder, did I do that? Or did a customer take it from nonfiction and just put it back on the shelf somewhere else?
And then in terms of like people, let's say you have a parent out there who's listening and they have a child and reading hasn't been necessarily a high priority, but they kind of like maybe want to get started. Is there something you would recommend to a parent who's just starting down the pathway of getting their child into reading?
Well, I think that, and I know this is probably everybody goes, well, we already do that, but I think that it's really important to, from like the beginning, to read to your kids, every night or every other night, but make them see that books are important to you. And if they love the stories that you're telling out of these books, a lot of times that translates into them wanting to pick up books as they get older. And I have a lot of kids that come in here, parents that bring their kids in here, which always makes me smile because I love it when parents come in and buy their kids books. For one of the, it's kind of that double-edged sword of, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? But a lot of ways to get people who are resistant to reading is to start with the graphic novels, because those are hugely popular. And that gets a lot of kids interested in reading. And then the hope is that they'll go on to actually read books that have lots of words in them.
And I like that you put that showing into sort of like that perspective of making it where they realize books are important to you, but also from like the mental mapping piece of it. If you read to your child every night, it turns on different parts of the brain
Mhm.
that are necessary for childhood development. And even if they're not in school, that helps them with their development piece so that when they get to school, it's a little bit easier for them to comprehend.
Yep.
And then in terms of like a community like Silverton, what has been the community response to having this bookstore here?
Well, I get a lot of people that come in and they're excited to be here, and they go, I love your store. I love I love having this here, hope you stay here. And my comment back is always, if you keep coming back, hopefully I will stay here. But people, I don't know, they, I don't know, I guess a lot of people are like me that just love coming into little independent bookstores. And so those are the comments that I get a lot.
And then in terms of like, has there been recently an author that you've read where you've put down the book and like, I did not expect this to be that amazing?
Yeah, I find one of the advantages of, I was just talking about this with a customer the other day. One of the advantages to being in this environment is that sometimes you find authors that you absolutely love. And so you get stuck in that, I know this author, I'm going to read this author, and you don't branch out, because number one, if you branch out and you're thinking about, I want to buy a new book, but then you look at the prices of the new books that author has written, you go, I need to branch out. And so this gives me the ability to find new authors that I might not necessarily have read before, which is really fun. And I think that David Baldacci became one of my favorites, in that he writes a lot of different, he likes like CIA assassin kind of stuff, which isn't really where I go. but he also writes these other series. One of them in particular is a detective named Amos Decker, and it's called the Memory Man series. And it's they're just amazing books. He's an amazing writer. But I love Michael Connelly and his Detective Bosch and John Grisham and but I think because one of my passions, one of my beginnings of reading was Nancy Drew. And so ingrained in me is I love mysteries. I love police stories, stuff like that. So
What was it about Nancy Drew that drew you in?
the mystery of it, the fact that, here's a girl that's going out and doing, really dynamic things, and being a girl myself, you go, ooh, maybe I'll grow up and be Nancy Drew, so it was just, they were just, people nowadays may read Nancy Drew and it might be, it's like the old movies. They were great in their day, but I do have people who still come in and they're looking for Nancy Drew. They're looking for the Hardy Boys, they're looking for the old books, the Cherry Ames. And this is kind of off point, but speaking of Cherry Ames, this is what bookstores do. I had a lady that came in here one day and she was looking at my old Cherry Ames books and she said, those books changed my life. Cherry Ames, I read her when I was a little girl. She's a nurse. She goes, I grew up and I am a nurse. And it's all because of reading Cherry Ames when I was a little kid. So that's what books can do for people.
And I love that about the sometimes you find that literary author and that just sort of strikes your fancy. And like for me, it was Richard Marcinko, uh, because like I served in the military, and he was a series of books where the way he spoke and the way he put these stories together, while you kind of like, okay, this has got to be fiction. At the same time, like he actually knew the language of the soldier. And it was a good way for me to sort of get back into my military experience because you saw something or read something that used the right words. And so I'm always a fan of authors that take the time to understand and build in the appropriate language. And because like I've read some books where like if my autistic mind says like, okay, a doctor would not say that in any medical setting whatsoever, it kind of turns me off. But I love all of those sort of pathways into like different aspects of life, because you can sort of let things go and just immerse yourself in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
which is, like you say, it has the opportunity to sort of be life-changing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of like you growing up and sort of like getting the book bug, uh, where did you store all these books until you owned a bookstore?
um, in my house looks like a library, my uh, my second oldest son, when I moved from my rental to my home that I own now, he helped me move. And I kind of have this ongoing feeling of we'd go back to the rental and I'd go, I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. Why does it still look the same as it looked yesterday? But when we finally got everything out of that house and into my house, his response to me was, Mom, you have a choice. I will never move you again unless you sell all of your books or you're going to die here. And so I've just kind of made this, because that was 25 years ago. Do you think I have more books now than I had then? Yes. And he is constantly teasing me about all of my books.
And then as people come in and they see this sort of the bookstore and its environment, uh, is this the kind of place where you could come in and if you don't have something, you could find a way to get it?
As far as ordering a
Books.
book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I order books for people all the time.
And the cool part about a place like this too is that you have a place to go and talk about it.
Yep.
Because like you order books on Amazon and that's the end of it, right? You take the human factor out of the book process. And I always encourage people to to come to a place like this first, not only for the customer service aspect of it, but you can actually read the first page
Hmm.
just to be sure.
And I have conversations with my customers about that all the time because, particularly in the summertime, I get, we get people from out of town, and I'm always encouraging them to, if they're looking for a particular book, even if it's a new book, I said, if you have a local independent bookstore anywhere in your neighborhood, seek them out first before you go online to buy your purchases. I said, number one, it's way more fun because you get to interact, you get to be part of the community, you get to support the community. And if you order it online, you're not you don't get, there's no feedback, there's no back and forth, there's no talking about the book. And I said, it's important to seek out the stores in your neighborhood, the independent bookstores, to keep them alive.
And not only that, every dollar that you spend at a store like this stays here. Every dollar that you spend at Amazon goes to a different state, and most of the money goes to a community that has nothing to do with this community.
Correct.
And so, like, why not
Yep.
come down to a store like this and not only support your local community, but have a level of customer service? And so it's like a win-win-win-win-win if we can support local, because like we need our money to stay here, because the reality is like the idea of rugged individualism is wrong. And I say that because like if you have a cell phone, you are not individualistic. You are relying on 1,000 other people who put that phone together. And so we are a community. Like we breathe the same air. We share the same space. And so we need to like really invest and support local so that we can keep local. Like it has this very odd effect. And so like I get heartbroken when I go to communities and all you see are the big box stores.
Mhm. Yeah.
And like I make it a point to like not go there.
And I think when I first bought the store, it probably took me about a year before a light bulb went off over my head to go, wait a minute. I think that, normal, everyday, very kind people don't understand the connection between the shopping local, keeping the money in the community, and my light bulb moment was that I lived in Silverton, but I worked in Marion County. And when I would leave my office, by the end of the day, you're tired and you're going, I just need to run my errands and go home. And so the errands that you run, you at least for me, have a tendency to be, I'm going to go 5 minutes from where I work to run my errand, because that 5 minutes, I'm not relaxed in my car yet. So I'm going to go, do my gift shopping, what's close to my work. I'm going to go to the grocery store that's close to my work. And then I get back in my car and I drive, the 20 minutes home, but I'm relaxing. And so by the time I get home, I'm home. So you're not thinking to get in your car and go, oh, it's really important for me to go to my local grocery store, to go to my local places for gifts, to go, because then you're driving and you're stopping. And so that was an acceptance moment for me to be more compassionate for the local people who don't shop downtown, who don't think about it, and still try to get the message out there about how important it is to shop local, because it's not Amazon that has the kids coming in from the high school asking for donations for their prom, or the church groups that come in asking for donations for, or the food bank, or the, I mean, name anything in your town that could be asking for support. They're not writing to Amazon and asking for that support. They're coming to the local merchants. And so the money that we make, then it ends up being kept in town, but we need to make the money to be able to support local causes. I hope I didn't get on my passionate soapbox.
No. It's the same soapbox that I have, because like I ran a business for 6 months, and after 6 months, I knew I would never run a business again, because of the amount of work and all of the things, because there's, people have a sort of rose-eyed view, rose-colored glasses view of what it's like to be a business owner. They don't see the sacrifices of the owner that has to come in 2 hours before the store is actually open, or does the books for 3 hours after the store is closed at night, that does all of the extra community and marketing and engagement and all of these other pieces at the same time, having to be at the place and run the place while you're here. The work never ends if you own the business.
Right.
There's a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of things that go into it. And because of that, I have a passion to support those local businesses, because like without them, what are we? Like, how are we going to get the roads fixed? Right? Because like, it's the businesses that this level is smaller. You all pay the predominant level of taxes for the local community.
Well, the only thing that I would have to say about that is the fact that a lot of the buildings in Silverton are owned by other people.
Right.
And so like for me, I rent my space. And so I'm helping my landlord pay his taxes, I'm sure, but I'm not actually the person responsible for paying those taxes. But I am the person responsible for paying my landlord. And, it's sometimes really hard to hear conversations about, your town is so beautiful. I love your quaint downtown. I love all your shops. But as a business person, to stand back and go, I love our quaint downtown too. I love our shops. I love our retailers. I love our community. But if people aren't careful, this isn't going to last. This isn't going to be here. And the downtown that is so quaint with all the shops is going to be finance companies and real estate offices and all the places that don't make a downtown quaint. And that scares me. That keeps me up at night. That's conversations that retailers are having with each other. And it's when you have a passion for what you do, for your shop, for your town, for your community, you always hope that it's reciprocated, that passion comes back.
And passion coming back in the form, folks, of you coming out and buying a book, of you coming around and buying a fossil from a shop 2 doors down, right? Like, there's all of these small, independently owned, operated businesses by amazing human beings doing amazing things for the community. But if we stop shopping here, there are some long-term impacts that I would never want to see.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah, because we're in this together, like we live here. Like, you want it to be quaint, then let's support each other, right? And it's not like, I think people are under the misconception of like that it's not a give relationship when it comes to people who own businesses, but no, it is. Like, there is a level of giving on a small business owner that is necessary, right? Because like you're saying, right, Amazon isn't this, the banner at the baseball games at the high school is not Amazon. It's the small businesses.
We'll hope not anyway.
We hope not, right? Yeah, when Amazon buys high school football,
Yeah.
but I see what you're saying. Like, it's really important for us to sort of give back and support the community, especially if you're going to buy a book anyway. Come down here and buy a book from a place that
Come
you
here
know.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're not saving any money going to Amazon, folks. I think that's the other misconception too, is you're paying just about the same price for the book here as you are online. So like, you're not like saving $25 on a book by going to Amazon. And all you're doing is sort of hurting the environment, doing all this other stuff where you could just come down here and get the same book and have a conversation that you normally wouldn't have. Yeah. And so in terms of like this store in particular, is there sort of like a layout to it? Like, how have you organized this right here? Because I'm looking at it because like you got good kids in the back sort of thing. And
I have a little kid's cubby.
Yeah.
Back here. I have sci-fi is a very popular genre, so it has a little room all of its own at the back of the store. And then, like I said, it's general fiction and westerns at one end. The general fiction kind of runs into the romance. And then I have a whole aisle of juvenile fiction, which is anywhere from, beginning readers to adults love my juvenile fiction aisle. They love the books they get off of there. And then there's a section for biographies. Then it runs into true stories. And then there's my personal favorite section of mysteries. And then I have a little business section. I have a small section that's like, it's not women specific because obviously men could buy off there, but it's things that might interest women. And I have a nice history section.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say this out loud, but a politics section. And I have classics in a section. I have art, and then I kind of do it yourself, languages, crafts, knitting, sewing, so it's almost like you name it and you may be able to find that genre that you're looking for here.
And you brought up a term that I want to ask you about, because you said juvenile fiction. What's the difference between juvenile fiction and like other forms of fiction?
It's the way that the book is written to target, 15-year-olds or 17-year-olds or 12-year-olds or, 8-year-olds. If because there's book Captain Underpants,
Okay.
that's a book focused at younger children, or Percy Jackson, Rick Riordan's excellent series, that's focused at whatever age group would like to begin reading those. But Percy Jackson, that's also one that adults love. And so it's just the way the books are written and the audience they're focusing on.
I love that. And then the other thing too is in terms of like, so as you go through like the shelves and the books on there, do you have like a combination of used and new?
My new is kept separate.
Okay.
For the most part. Yeah, so it's mostly used books in the main part of the store.
And I saw something about book credits.
Yes.
If people bring in books.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
I do accept books if I need them, if I can use them in the store. If they're in good shape, then for paperbacks, it's $1 credit. For hardbacks, it's $2. And so people can build up their credit and then use it towards the purchase of other used books. You can't use it for new books, but it's a half and half split. They can use half credit and half cash to purchase. Simplest example is if you have credit and you got a $3 book, they can use $1.50 of their credit and they pay me $1.50. So they get to save a little bit of money.
That's a
And
clever way of doing
I
it
get
too.
to gain some books. And it's always fun when I receive books because it's like Christmas. I never know what I'm going to find. And in some of the things, there's been absolute gems that I've been gifted with. So it's
Can you think of a
fun.
recent gem that you got?
Not so recent, maybe a year ago. A very nice lady came in and her family situation changed. I think her husband had passed away. And so she was clearing out her house and there was just lots of things she didn't want anymore. And she didn't care what was in the boxes. And when I started going through them, there was a beautiful set it was a history of the United States. And I think it was 4 or 5 books, but they were old books in beautiful condition that had the parchment paper over the pictures, and they were just gorgeous. So having said that, they end up not being one, even though they're used, they're not going to be a $6 book. They were a much more valuable set of books. And that was shocking to me. I think that was my first experience with actually being gifted with those kinds of books and going, whoa, this is not a $6 book. And a very nice young man that was one of my regular customers who has since gone on to having to move out of state for university. He was the smartest person I've ever met when it comes to history of the United States, history of the world. He could talk about anything. I had just put those books on the shelf with a rather spendy price. He took one look at them and he said, "Carol, I get paid next week. Will you save these for me?" And so it's like they came in, the perfect person was a customer, and they were gone the following week. Very nice feeling to be able to do that.
So we've been at this for almost an hour. And how can people find information about your bookstore? Please tell people the name. Like, I know you're here in Silverton.
It's Books and Time. I am at 210 North Water Street in Silverton. You can find, I have a Facebook page. I am working on being better at my Instagram. And I was gifted with a grant that is allowing me to develop a website. So my website hopefully will be up and running soon. I have this list, this ABCD thing that my website developer has given me that I have to be responsible for doing. And it's like, okay, I'll do that. And so eventually, look on my Facebook page, you'll see my website page. And my website page will also have online capabilities of buying books from me.
Nice.
And so those are all the ways that you can find me, but I would love you to find me in person.
I can't thank you enough. And I'll end the podcast the way I always end the podcast, folks. Be kind. We all live on the same planet. We breathe the same air, and this world would be a little bit better if we treated everybody with a little kindness and respect. Carol, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shawn. This was intimidating, but fun. And I cannot believe that you invited me to do this
Are you
and
kidding?
talk
This
about
place
my
is
passion.
awesome.
So,
Yeah, and if you haven't checked this out, like this is only a small portion that you see here, folks, but this is like a warm and inviting place with a lot of books, and you will not be disappointed, though. So, Carol, thank you so much. And we're back, folks, because as we were chatting when we sort of were packing up, you were telling me about the whole passion about local author things. And I'm like, yo, we need to include that on here. So please tell me a little bit about what you were just talking about.
yeah. And I had thought about this, before the podcast, that I wanted to talk about my passion for local authors. And then I forgot. I forgot to say anything. So I carry a lot of local authors' books. And when I say local, we have so many creative people in the Silverton, Marion County area. A lot of people with a passion for writing. But the local also extends into Pacific Northwest. But a lot of my authors are local. And I really am trying to develop a big push for supporting the creative people you have in your own neighborhood. They write fantasy, they write true stories, they write scary fiction, and they run the gamut of the things that they do. And I just think it's really, really important not to look for just the brand name James Patterson's or look for people that you wouldn't necessarily find somewhere else, and support your local authors, because they work really hard to put those books together, thousands of hours.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, right? Because I'm hugely passionate around supporting local musicians, right? I have an entirely new podcast just dedicated to that. And so the idea of like coming out and supporting your local authors is also amazing. And I don't know why it was until today for that epiphany just to happen, because I would imagine there are a lot of gems that we don't really know about
There are.
that live just next door.
Yep.
Can you think of a couple off the top of your head that you would recommend people to sort of check out?
Well, there's a lovely lady. Her name is Chris Lockhart, and she lives in Kaiser, and she just finished her 8th book in a series, and her main characters she calls them the geezers, because they're all in their late 70s, early 80s. And her books are a combination of adventure and crime solving, because when these geezers in the first book, Green Ridge, they meet each other, and it's kind of interesting circumstances how they meet. But when you read her books, the Metolius River, Camp Sherman, all of these places that you will absolutely recognize. And I find myself, when I read her books, if I'm sitting alone, I'm laughing out loud. She's great. Other people are, it's like, I want to name everybody because I don't want to feel like I'm excluding anyone. So to all you local authors that I carry, I love you all. There's Norm English, who writes very researched books on Silverton. He's 3rd generation, I believe, Silvertonian, and he writes these wonderful books and has wonderful pictures of Silverton then and now. William Cook writes a mystery series. There's too many to mention.
But it's cool at the same time that there is a local place that you can go and you can say, hey, where are the local artists at? And you know exactly where to point them.
Yep.
That is cool that there is that local connection. Because, like, I think about, like, how hard it is to find local musicians. Like having a local store that like is aware of local artists and local authors.
Yeah. And just, it's important to support them too.
Yeah.
And because I think I said this, but they spend thousands of hours creating these adventures for us to read, or this knowledge of something that was real that, happened. And I think that they deserve to be kind of uplifted, rather than, it's a self-published book, or it's a, you know, you got to give local people a chance. And who knows, we could have the next, James Patterson or Raymond Chandler right amongst us, but if they don't get supported, we'll never find that out. And the one other little blurb when it comes to local authors, one of the questions that I get asked by people that come in here, it's actually kind of funny. When you own a bookstore, people automatically assume you've read every book, every author, and you know how to write a book, and so they'll start to ask you questions about that. And I've actually had that question asked enough that I am in conversation with multiple authors to actually put together a writer's workshop. And so we're working on that right now. So I would like to make people aware of that so they can look for it when it's, I think, oh my gosh, I can't remember the date. I think we have July 18th set for our first workshop. But there'll be flyers and posters and, information on my Facebook page. So if they follow my Facebook page, they will find out, that we've got it all together, and it's going to be here in the bookstore.
That's cool.
And we're hoping that it stimulates a lot of interest amongst all of those people who have asked those questions, like, how do you even get started? Because they're looking at, this whole big book thing. And, I know everybody knows this expression, but it's like, how do you start writing a book? You don't look at it like it's how do you eat the whole elephant? You start a piece at a time, but then they go, okay, well, what's that piece? And so we want to help people who are curious and who, you don't even have to totally really think that at the end of it you're going to write a book.
Yeah.
But just be curious about what the process is, or how can we help you if you do want to write that book. How can we plant that seed? Maybe get you some mentorship. Or so I'm excited about that.
I'm excited about that too, because I think a lot of people, if you come at it from the approach of this is a workshop that helps you become a writer as a passion project of your own, right? Because like not everybody is going to be that literary genius to where it sells 1 million copies.
Correct.
But if you want to get started in how to write a book and the process and all that stuff, even if it's your own passion project, this is a useful tool that you're talking about, because there is a formula, there is a format, and there is sort of like a pathway to at least putting something down in terms of a book.
And I think the fun thing about it is going to be um the perspective of different authors,
Yeah.
and what their writing method is, how they did what they did, because everybody's different. Some people, they start with the end in mind and they develop their story backwards. And some people do outlines, they write ledgers and ledgers and ledgers of ideas. Wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and write in that book next to you. Or some people, they just sit at the computer and the story comes to them and they just, so I think that it will be fun to get the different perspectives from people, because not everybody's the same. And I just think it will be just fun in general. And we're really hoping what happens is we start out with one workshop, and find out what people are really interested in, have questions, and then that workshop will build another workshop so that maybe we can make this, really amazing and have it go, just keep stepping up and having, authors that will step in and teach another class. And so it's big thinking, hopefully comes out as something, a really great adventure for people.
And I have a feeling it might, because like one of the questions I ask on every of my musicians podcast is about the muse. And it's one of the most popular aspects of the podcast, because even with musicians, no two musicians record music the same way. And to get different perspectives on the how behind the scenes, sort of like how to write in that sort of format, is going to be a valuable conversation. Because like you said, like no two authors are the same. No two authors are going to have the same approach. But at the same time, what I have found in my music interviews is that there are some things that are universal. And if you work on those universal aspects and then take your own approach to it, it leads to better music. And so I would imagine this is very similar, where you take that concept of, here are some stepping stones, here's how I approach things, take what you will that will help you, but then it's up to you as your own individual person to be the author that you want to be. I think you're onto something here. I think it's going to be cool.
And the one thing that I would like to make people aware of is I feel exceptionally blessed by the people who have entered my life. And I think I mentioned before that the community means a lot to me. So we are, and my partnerships with the other people that are going to be teaching these classes, we're doing it for free. So anybody that is interested will be welcome, and they don't have to worry about, an output of any kind of income. We want to support the community. It's all about community.
It's all about giving back. Yeah. And I love that too, right? It's like very similar to this podcast. Like I will never charge a guest to be on this podcast. Like I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this for the passion of it. And that's the people I love to talk with and promote. And so I want to thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation today. And I'm really glad we added this addendum.
I am too. Thank you very much.
Because that's
my
that
afterthought.
Yeah, but it's so important, right? That's that community connection piece that really brings us together, because the main narrative that you have is all of these conversations about what drives us apart. And that's not us. Like we have this ability to come together, and through an experience like this builds community instead of the opposite. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And check out Books in Time, y'all. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you again.